I was so tired of holding on to anger. And it was through putting my words onto paper, I was physically letting all of the anger go, along with realizing that this is who I didn't want to be. This person that I had become was not who I knew who I was. And unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. One of the things that I avoided feeling for a very long time was the feeling of abandonment. I didn't want that to be my story. I also felt like by saying that I was abandoned, I would be disregarding my mom and my sisters who filled up so much of my cup in my life as a child and a teenager and young adult. And I tried to hide behind not caring, not needing a relationship with my dad, but deep down, I craved it. In the last episode, I shared how my mom said something so profound to me that felt like she was holding up a mirror for me to see who I had become. And spoiler alert, I didn't like what I saw. One of the things that plagued my thoughts were just wondering why and how my dad couldn't pick up the phone to see that I was okay after this car accident that I had. And I realized that was all little Ashley Ann had always wanted: the effort, the phone call. I knew I was harboring a lot of anger and resentment, but the truth was my ego was saying that my actions were valid. But the thing was, my emotions were valid, but my actions weren't. I had this big aha moment when I was faced with seeing this version of myself, who I had become, because the things that I was saying as a result of how I was feeling were not kind whatsoever. And finally, one day, I decided to open up my laptop and I wrote my dad a letter. And to be honest, I still can't remember what I said. I've tried to find this letter, but I know I was very passionate and honest about how I was feeling. And I'll admit, I think if I gave myself a little bit of space, I probably would have rewritten it. But I printed it right away and I gave it to him shortly after. I didn't even think about it. And I just got to a point where I was so tired of holding on to anger. And it was through putting my words onto paper, I was physically letting all of the anger go, along with realizing that this is who I didn't want to be. This person that I had become was not who I knew who I was. And that act of physically putting it all on paper was allowing me to finally let it surface and release it physically. And so that's the thing. Once we start to shed light on our shadows, what we talked about last week in last week's episode, and we allow ourselves to sit with the emotions and experiences and allow ourselves to experience ourselves, but from an observer perspective. You know, we look at ourselves from this like bird's eye view angle, and that's when we can begin to see things in a new light, have a new perspective, and finally rewrite the story. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, is rewriting the story. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to listen to the previous episodes in this 7-part series all about alchemy, from a spiritual lens. It is something that has just been filling my cup, and just seeing how we are all alchemists in our own way. We are all transforming in ways, and it is so beautiful to understand the process that we all go through and that we all experience, because sometimes there are moments where we are experiencing something and it doesn't make sense, and it is so challenging and it is so frustrating, but how all of it is so necessary. All of it is so necessary for us to come out onto this other end and have this new perspective and be this new version of ourselves and be transformed, be alchemized. And so, as always, I invite you to share your thoughts, your insights, your ahas, whether it be here on Spotify. You can literally leave a comment if you're listening on Spotify, or if you're listening here on YouTube. Leave a comment about your insights, or send me a DM, Words by Ashley Ann, and we can just dive in more on this. I love you, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media, and we'll see you in the next episode.